Hey, what's going on everyone, for a slightly different kind of Citizen Pete. So we've done about 20 segments now, and I liked how they've gone so far, but I kind of don't feel like they're the real me, you know? Like I feel like I can do things a little bit differently, maybe have a little bit more fun with it, so I've decided to do something my mom told me to never do, and that's drink and talk about politics. And so, let's try that out. I thought maybe something a little different, switch it on up. And today we're going to be talking about the media and the virus. There's been a lot of criticism about how the media has treated the Covid-19 pandemic. A lot of folks think that the media has blown this up so much and they've sensationalized it, and that's why the virus is such a big thing. And there's a lot of back and forth on this. And to be honest with you, the media has kind of blown things up a little bit. In general, just people hate the messenger. I mean, that's a lot of what this is, but the media can sensationalize things sometimes, but not so much for the reason you think. I mean, a lot of people think that the media is just blowing up fake stories, but that's not what it's about. I personally worked for the news for around 6 years. I worked for an ABC news station in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I would get a lot of stories, a lot of shootings, a lot of stuff like that. And I always thought, how can I make this story better, right? And so if there was a shooting, maybe I would take some what we call nat sound, right? We would do little like pops of gunfire. If there was gunfire in the video that we had, I'd maybe start off with that. I'd write the video, I'd write the script for the video, and I'd make it very, very action-packed, because I want to tell a good story. Like, the whole thing with this is we all want to tell a good story, but sometimes, and now that I've gotten out of the news, I've realized that sometimes telling that good story and making it exciting might be kind of blowing it up a little bit. You'd watch some of the segments that I put together in Albuquerque, and you'd think the whole place was a war zone. You would think it's like the Wild West, which sometimes it is, but the news made it look really, really dangerous, and parts of it are dangerous. But in general, when we're doing news stuff and we're producing these things, we're not trying to give you false information, but maybe sometimes we're making it look worse than it is. Like, I've been watching NBC nightly news throughout this whole pandemic, and off the top, they really dramatic music, all these like crazy graphics, all these visuals, and it can kind of seem like they're really blowing it up. But the thing is, there's an entertainment factor there. If people would just watch the news and there was none of that stuff, I mean, no one would watch it. The numbers would fall off, and my experience kind of reflects that. Like, I could have told that story without gunshots and all these kind of cool shots there and all this good writing, but you probably wouldn't have watched it. And case in point, a couple years ago when Obamacare was first passed, the news station I was at, we sent a reporter to DC to learn everything that people needed to know about Obamacare. I'm not sure if you remember that time, but it was very transformative. Obamacare was a whole different way of doing our healthcare system. And we sent a reporter to DC, and I'm sure she stayed at a very nice hotel and learned everything you needed to know about Obamacare. She comes back to Albuquerque, she puts the segments together, and after the first day or two, our numbers tank. See, with the news, we can actually track the numbers by the minute, so we can tell if a story's going good or not going good. And we thought people were really going to care about this Obamacare stuff, so we put that raw information out there. And after the first day or two, we just stopped airing them because the numbers tanked. As much as people say they don't want to see crime and they don't want to see all these horrible stories, they really do. The ratings go up when those stories are there. And you can blame the media as much as you want to for, doing that and trying to actually look for numbers, but that's just the way the world works. Even doing Citizen Pete, doing this news show, right? The most viewed video that I have was about a possible shutdown here in Texas. I heard rumors we were going to shut down. The numbers weren't doing so good, and so I didn't want the state to shut down, but I put that information out there. And that video got like 700 views. That's like one of my most watched videos that I've ever done. And luckily, the numbers kind of stabled off a little bit, and we didn't have to shut down. The mask order kind of took effect, and that really helped out. And so I put out a video that said, oh, guess what? We got good news. And that got like 100 views. So as much as people say, hey, I hate like the news, trying to sensationalize these things, people are clicking on the bad news more than they are the good news. And that's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, a news station or a newspaper, they're all about trying to appeal to their readers, and it's a business. They got to keep the lights on. So you can't blame the news for sensationalizing things without taking some responsibility yourself. Another point I want to make on the news is that a lot of people don't get the difference between local news and national news, and that I get it. That can be a little confusing. I mean, I know a lot of you guys hate Fox News, and the national Fox News is I feel bad even calling them news. They're more of a political, spin type thing. But even Fox News, during the day, they actually report good factual stuff. The Fox National News brand, during the day, they report, facts. They report good news. Shepard Smith with the news at Fox News has really held the Trump administration to task on things. And they're actually, during the day, if you're watching the daytime programming, which no one is watching, they're actually pretty factual. It's the opinion and commentary stuff later on that dives into the whole realm of being bullshit. But the Fox News that you're watching, the national Fox News brand, isn't the local Fox News station in your town or in your city or wherever you're at. The news is basically built up of, there's owned and operated stations, and there's affiliated stations. For example, I worked for a corporation that owned an ABC station, right? And so this ABC station, we would get all our national news from ABC, but as a business, we were part of this corporation that owned CNN stations, that owned CBS stations, all that kind of stuff. So there's a real difference there between your national, NBC News, CBS News, Fox News, and your local news stations. There's just a huge discrepancy there. So much so that I actually got in a little bit of trouble when I was at the news because I used some footage that was NBC News footage, even though we were ABC. I actually almost got fired over it. It was not fun. But, it's kind of hard even working in the news to get that separation there. Another thing I want to point out is that it can kind of seem like the news in general blows things up, but you also have to realize the world is a lot smaller than it once was. I was just talking with my wife tonight about her family and how they used to never lock their car doors at night in their neighborhood. The world seemed simpler, less crime, and really it's, I think statistically I'm pretty sure the crime rates are actually lower now than they used to be, but the world is smaller. I saw a local news story here in Austin. We have KXAN, and KXAN's shared a story about a mother and father who passed away from the coronavirus, and they left an 18-year-old kid behind, and it's just a horrible story. That's a bad story, but our local KXAN, station, our local NBC station reported it here in Austin, and that story was from Georgia, which doesn't make it any less horrible, but it just kind of shows that we're, with the internet and with social media, we're getting a lot of news from everywhere, and we're gonna see some bad stuff because, we're getting so much news. Back in the day, you probably wouldn't hear that story from Georgia here in Austin, Texas, but that's how things work nowadays. But if you are out there and you're looking for accurate news and you want to find the real raw information, my suggestion is to read your local paper. Subscribe to your local paper. That's probably the best source of news that all of us have. Even when I was working at a news station, we would run local newspaper stories as news stories all the time because that's where some of the best journalism is being done. You can also watch your local news. I mean, even though sometimes it might seem like they sensationalize things, maybe there's a little bit of that going on, there really are some really good journalists and good journalists that are out there, especially during this pandemic, risking their lives to tell you local stories. I've had a lot of friends that are reporters here in Texas that have contracted the coronavirus themselves, or they've been to protests and they've gotten things thrown at them, or they've gotten yelled at, they've gotten attacked, and they're all doing that so they can tell you the story. They can report the news for you, so you should support them. And also, if you're looking for national news, check out the Associated Press. Most national news actually starts out at the Associated Press. They're the most trusted news source in the country. And sometimes, different networks will put their spin on an AP news story. But if you're just looking for the raw data, check out the AP. So there you go. Before you just blindly attack the media for blowing everything up and putting out fake news or whatever, think about where that source is coming from. Think about what the news is as a business. And, look at yourself. Would you click on that thing if it had a less catchy headline? But you can always trust you're going to get some accurate information from me. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for watching Citizen Pete. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already, click that little subscribe button, maybe the like button, and hey, maybe just leave a comment. I want to know what you're thinking. What do you think about all the politics, the news, and all the stuff that's going on in our country?